When the understudy whispered, "The lights are rigged," nobody believed her, until the chandelier started to fall. The Grand View Theater was a relic from another era. Velvet curtains the color of dried blood hung from a stage that had hosted legends. Opera singers, ballet dancers, actors whose names were still whispered with reverence. Tonight was supposed to be the comeback performance of Elena Voss, an actress who dominated Broadway 20 years ago before vanishing after a scandal no one talked about publicly. Backstage smelled of dust, makeup, and decades of nervous sweat soaked into wooden floors. Cara Mendez stood in the wings, her costume fitting awkwardly across her shoulders. At 23, she was the understudy, the insurance policy no one expected to use. She'd been with the production for 6 weeks learning Elena's every gesture, every line inflection, every dramatic pause. Not that it mattered. Elena Voss didn't miss performances. The theater was packed. Investors, critics, former castmates who'd come to see if the legend could still command a stage. The air buzzed with anticipation that felt almost electric. Cara watched Elena prepare in her dressing room through the cracked door. The older woman sat before an enormous mirror ringed with lights, applying makeup with the precision of a surgeon. Everything about her screamed control, the way she held her lipstick, the angle of her chin, the cold assessment in her eyes as she studied her reflection. "Stop hovering, Cara," Elena said without turning around. "Your anxiety is exhausting." "Sorry, Miss Voss. I just wanted to see if you needed anything." "What I need is for you to understand your place," Elena replied, her voice pleasant but edged with steel. "You are here to watch and learn, nothing more." Cara stepped back, her cheeks burning. She'd admired Elena once, studied her performances in college, memorized her interviews. But 6 weeks of close proximity had revealed something else beneath the polish. Something cruel. The stage manager's voice crackled through the intercom. 30 minutes to curtain. Cara moved through the backstage maze, past costume racks and prop tables, trying to shake off the sting of Elena's dismissal. She'd almost reached the back hallway when she noticed something odd. Marcus Chen, the lighting director, was standing on a catwalk 30 feet above the stage. He was alone, which was unusual this close to curtain, but what caught Cara's attention was his body language, the furtive glance over his shoulder, the way his hands moved quickly over something she couldn't quite see. She stepped closer, squinting up into the darkness of the fly space. Marcus was working on the chandelier rigging. The massive crystal fixture hung directly over center stage, where Elena would stand for her climactic monologue in Act 3. It was a spectacular piece, supposedly worth $250,000, and it was lowered during the performance for dramatic effect. But Marcus wasn't supposed to be adjusting anything. Tech rehearsal had been yesterday. Everything should be locked in. Cara's pulse quickened. She watched as Marcus did something to the cable housing, something that looked like he was loosening rather than tightening. Then he descended the ladder quickly, his footsteps echoing as he disappeared into the lighting booth. She stood frozen. Maybe she'd misunderstood. Maybe there was a last-minute adjustment, but the way he'd moved, that guilty glance. "You lost?" Cara jumped. James Park, the assistant director, stood behind her with a clipboard. "No, I was watching Marcus on the catwalk. Did someone call for a lighting adjustment?" James frowned. "Not that I know of. Why?" He was doing something to the chandelier rigging. "Probably just a safety check," James said, but his tone was uncertain. "You nervous about tonight?" "Maybe," Cara admitted. "It's normal. Big night for all of us." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Elena's got a lot riding on this. We all do." As he walked away, Cara couldn't shake the image of Marcus's hands on those cables. The chandelier was supposed to lower smoothly, gracefully. What if it didn't? What if whatever he'd done caused it to... She shook her head. This was paranoia, stage fright. She was inventing problems because she was anxious about being invisible. But then she remembered something from 2 weeks ago. She'd been in the production office, dropping off costume measurements, when she'd overheard voices through the closed door. Marcus and someone else. She hadn't recognized the voice then. But now she thought it might have been James. "Can't keep covering for her," Marcus had said, his voice tight with anger. "She destroyed my sister's career." blacklisted her over nothing. I know, the other voice had replied. But this isn't the way. Then, what is? She gets to come back to glory while Sophia can't even get a call back for community theater? The conversation had ended abruptly when someone else entered the office. Kara had filed it away as general backstage drama. Now, it felt different. The house lights dimmed. Kara stood in the wings as the orchestra swelled, watching Elena glide onto the stage to thunderous applause. The actress had transformed, no longer the cold woman from the dressing room, but someone luminous, commanding, impossible to look away from. The first act went flawlessly. Elena hit every mark, every line sharp and perfectly delivered. The audience was enthralled. During intermission, Kara found herself pacing. The chandelier scene was in Act 3, about 40 minutes away. She kept seeing Marcus's hands on those cables, kept hearing his voice. She destroyed my sister's career. She had to be wrong, had to be. She made a decision and headed for the lighting booth. Marcus was inside, monitoring the board, adjusting levels with the precision of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. "Marcus?" she said, knocking softly. He turned, surprised. "Kara, you should be in position." "I know, I saw you on the catwalk earlier, before the show, working on the chandelier." His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "Routine check." "Why?" "It just seemed unusual, that close to curtain." "Are you questioning my work?" His voice was pleasant, but there was an edge to it. "No, because I've been doing this for 15 years, I know my job." Kara swallowed. "Of course, sorry, I am just nervous." He studied her for a long moment. "You should focus on your own role, even if it's just standing by." She left, her hands trembling. That hadn't gone the way she'd hoped. Now he knew she'd seen him. If there was something wrong, she might have just made it worse. Act 2 began. Elena was even better now, riding the momentum of the audience's adoration. Kara watched from the wings, her mind racing. Maybe she should tell someone, the stage manager, James. Anyone. But tell them what? That she'd seen the lighting director doing his job? That she'd overheard a conversation 2 weeks ago that might mean nothing? They'd think she was crazy, jealous, a paranoid understudy trying to sabotage the star. But as Act 3 began, as Elena moved into position for the chandelier scene, Kara felt ice in her stomach. Elena stood center stage, delivering her monologue about betrayal and redemption. Above her, the chandelier began its programmed descent, crystals catching the light, beautiful and terrible. Kara's eyes locked on the rigging, on the cables that Marcus had been adjusting. The chandelier lowered smoothly. 10 feet, 15, 20. Then she saw it. The cable housing on the left side was separating. Not dramatically, not with any sound, just a subtle, sickening shift that meant the weight distribution was wrong. In maybe 30 seconds, when the chandelier reached its lowest point and the motors strained to hold position, that cable was going to slip, and 1,500 pounds of crystal and iron would drop directly onto Elena Voss. Time seemed to slow. Kara saw it all in perfect clarity, the way it would happen, the screams, the blood, the end of everything for everyone involved in this production. Elena kept performing, unaware. The audience watched, enraptured. Marcus sat in his booth, his expression neutral, and Kara had to make a choice. She could stay silent, let it happen. Elena had been cruel to her, cruel to countless others. Maybe she deserved this. Maybe justice had found its own path. But even as the thought formed, Kara knew she wouldn't. She ran. Her footsteps thundered across the backstage area. The stage manager turned, shocked. "What are you—" "The lights are rigged," Kara screamed, not caring who heard, not caring about protocol or consequence. She burst through the wings onto the stage, into the blinding spotlights. "The chandelier! Move! Move!" Elena stopped mid-word, her face contorting with fury. "What the hell are you—" Kara grabbed her arm and yanked her sideways just as the cable gave way with a sound like a gunshot. The chandelier dropped, It hit the stage where Elena had been standing with a crash that seemed to split the world open. Crystals exploded outward like shrapnel. The wooden stage splintered. Someone in the audience screamed. Kara and Elena tumbled into the wings, landing hard. For a moment, there was only shocked silence. Then, chaos. The curtain dropped. The house lights came up. People were shouting, security rushing toward the stage. The stage manager was on his radio, voice shaking. "We need emergency services, now. No one's hurt, but just get here." Kara sat up slowly, her ears ringing. Elena was next to her, staring at the wreckage of the chandelier with wide, uncomprehending eyes. "You," Elena breathed. "You saved my life." Before Kara could respond, James was there, and the theater manager, and then police were arriving, asking questions nobody could quite answer. Kara found herself explaining what she'd seen: Marcus on the catwalk, the way he'd worked on the rigging, the conversation she'd overheard weeks ago. And when they went to find Marcus, he was gone. The lighting booth was empty, his car missing from the parking lot. But he'd left something behind. In his workstation, police found a journal. Pages and pages of careful planning, of anger cultivated over years. His sister Sophia had been an up-and-coming actress until Elena, threatened by her talent, had started rumors about unprofessionalism, made calls to casting directors, systematically destroyed her career until Sophia had a breakdown and left the industry entirely. Marcus had gotten this job specifically to be close to Elena, had planned this moment for months. The rigging was sophisticated, meant to look like an accident, like old equipment failing at the worst possible moment. What he hadn't planned for was someone paying attention, someone caring enough to act. The theater was closed for investigation, the production canceled. Elena gave a statement to police, then asked to speak to Kara privately. They met in the empty theater 2 days later. Elena looked smaller somehow, stripped of costume and stage makeup and the armor of performance. "I've been thinking about what Marcus wrote," Elena said quietly. "About Sophia Chen. I remember her. Talented. Genuinely talented." She paused. "I was jealous and cruel, and I justified it by telling myself it was how the business worked." Kara said nothing, waiting. "I would have died because of choices I made 20 years ago," Elena continued. "Because I couldn't stand to share the spotlight. And you saved me anyway, even though I've been nothing but dismissive to you." "I didn't do it for you," Kara said honestly. "I did it because it was the right thing to do, because whatever you've done, you didn't deserve to die like that." Elena's eyes glistened. "You are a better person than I am. Maybe I've just had less power to abuse." The older woman laughed, a short, bitter sound. "Perhaps." She stood, extending her hand. "The production is canceled, but I have contacts. If you want, I can make some calls. Get you auditions, real ones." Kara considered the offer. Part of her wanted to refuse, to stay proud. But she thought about Sophia Chen, about opportunities lost because someone powerful had decided she was a threat. "I'd appreciate that," Kara said, shaking Elena's hand, "but I'd appreciate it more if you made those calls for Sophia too." Elena's eyes widened. Then, slowly, she nodded. "I'll try. I don't know if she'll even take my call, but I'll try." Marcus Chen was arrested 3 days later, 2 states away. He confessed to everything: the rigging, the planning, the intent. At his arraignment, he showed no remorse, said only that he'd wanted Elena to know what it felt like to have everything taken away in an instant. The judge sentenced him to 15 years. Kara got her auditions. She booked a recurring role on a television series 6 months later. It wasn't Broadway, but it was hers, earned through talent, not given as guilt money. And Sophia Chen, after many conversations and much hesitation, agreed to meet with Elena Voss. What was said between them remained private, but 2 years later, Sophia returned to theater. Her comeback performance earned standing ovations and reviews that called her a revelation. Kara never forgot that night, the weight of the decision, the split second where she could have chosen differently. Sometimes we're faced with choices that reveal who we really are, not who we pretend to be or who we think we should be, but who we are when everything is stripped away and we have to act on instinct. Kara chose to save someone who'd been cruel to her. Marcus chose vengeance over healing. Elena chose, finally, to face the consequences of her actions. And in the end, that's all any of us can do. Choose what kind of person we want to be when it matters most. If this story made you think about the choices we make and the people we decide to be, consider subscribing. We share stories about moral courage, second chances, and the moments that define us, all true to the complexity of real human experience. Hit that like button if Kara's choice resonated with you, and share this with someone who might need a reminder that doing the right thing isn't always easy, but it's always worth it.